There we go. Well, I'm sure more people will be joining us as we continue, but good morning, everybody. My name is Aaron Levinson, and I am Vice President of Plain Giving for Los Angeles Jewish Health. Welcome to today's webinar. Before we begin, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we all have those who have been affected by the fires close in our thoughts, and we hope everybody's doing okay. It's terrible what's going on, and hopefully the firefighters can get this under control very soon. Although with the winds today and yesterday and tomorrow, it's looking even tougher. But we do wish everybody the best, and we hope you're all okay. I know we have donors who to the Jewish Home, to Los Angeles Jewish Health, who have lost their homes, and it's just a terrible situation. So we're very sorry for that. Los Angeles Jewish Health, or the Jewish Home as we were formerly known, continues to serve approximately 1,000 needy seniors and residents through long-term care, and approximately another 1,000 through community-based services. We have ambitious plans to double that number to about 8,000 every year. After all, the population of seniors is rapidly growing, and if we don't meet that demand, who's going to do that? So we have to meet that. I hope you all know how much we appreciate your support, especially those of you who are members of our Legacy Circle, which is comprised of those donors who have let us know that they have named Los Angeles Jewish Health in their estate plans. Members of the Legacy Circle are role models for others that are helping to secure our future. Each year, significant funds come to the home from generous individuals who have made these legacy gifts. Naming LAJH in your estate plans helps ensure the future of this important organization for generations to come. Your thoughtfulness in including us in your estate plans will help support our critical mission to provide excellence in senior care reflective of Jewish values. Those of you who are not yet members of the Legacy Circle, we invite you to join us. There are numerous ways, simple and complicated if you prefer, to include us in your estate plan. What a wonderful way that you can help this organization without impacting your current finances. Some of these methods may come up in our discussion this morning. And during the program, if you have questions for our panelists, please type them in the chat feature. Most of you will find the chat button at the bottom of your screen. And I will select some of the questions to read to the panelists at the end of all the presentations, as well as some of my own. What I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce each of the panelists as they speak before they speak, and ask them to speak for several minutes. And after each of them have made their introductory remarks, I will pose some of the questions to them. So beginning alphabetically, either by first or last name, either way, it's the same. We're going to begin with Ashley Burgin, CPA. Ashley is a tax senior manager at Gersey Schneider LLP in the firm's tax and accounting department. She provides a wide range of services, but specializes in high net worth individuals and their related entities, including trusts, partnerships, and S-corps. Ashley graduated from California State University, Northridge with a Bachelor of Science in Accountancy. She's also a CPA and attends continuing education courses and seminars in her field. In her free time, she enjoys traveling, trying out new restaurants, spending time with her family. And she says the first question she would ask after waking up from being cryogenically frozen for 100 years would be, can we go to Trader Joe's? So now I turn it over to Ashley.
Thank you so much, Aaron. As mentioned, I'm Ashley, big Trader Joe's fan, also a CPA who focuses on really proactive tax planning, most notably for the high net worth family or individuals who just have really complex tax situations. I have a few slides to share today of kind of just, tax planning, like a tax planning checklist of things, to think about. And, I would say, know these things exist and then consult with your trusted CPA, or I'm always happy to connect in that way. But these are in no way like a one size fits all, everybody should do it. It's just more, hey, these things exist. These are considerations, things like that. Before I hop into the slides, as Aaron mentioned, I live in the LA area. have been lucky enough to be pretty unaffected by the fires, but I realized that there's a lot of us in the LA area on this call, and so figured before I hopped into my, preset tax planning slides to go over a couple items that we're seeing come out from the fires over the past couple weeks, or the past week. It feels like a couple weeks, but it's really been a week. Most notably that LA County, as I think we all know, has been declared a major disaster zone by President Biden. In response to that, both the IRS and the California FTB have postponed tax filings and payment deadlines for those residing in LA County. You don't have to have evacuated. You don't have to, say, it's not like I lost my house, I've been evacuated, and that. If you reside in LA County, you are entitled to take that deadline extension. That applies to the 2024 fourth quarter estimate payments. Those are due tomorrow. So if you had any of those, you can go ahead and defer them if you choose. Tax extensions, first quarter estimates due 4/15, and then second quarter and third quarter estimates that would all, theoretically come due before that 10/15 postponement. All of those can be deferred until 10/15. So the tax planning consideration there is just, if you have funds that were set aside to make tax payments, set them aside, put them in a high yield savings account, earn interest on your money with that 9-month deferral that's available. Also noting that if you or anybody that you know have been affected by fires and suffered a loss, unfortunately, you may be eligible to take a tax casualty loss on your tax returns. Theoretically, this would be in the year of loss, so we're currently in 2025, at the beginning of 2025, and so you'd say, oh my gosh, I would have to wait a whole year until next year when I file my tax return to take that loss. But there is elections that can be made to take it in a preceding tax year, so if those losses have been incurred by you or somebody that consider that could actually be taken on the 2024 tax returns that would be filed this year, right, so that you could get that benefit. In addition to the income tax items that I mentioned, there's also property tax relief for people who have suffered fire damages or their homes have been destroyed. This application can be done with the California Board of Equalization. So with those items, I will hop into my pre-planned slides, and they'll say I have a lot, I may not make it through everything, so I'm going to move quickly, and as I mentioned, very high level, know these things exist. And with that, I will share my screen. Everybody see these slides? Okay, so the first item I'm going to cover today, considerations of Roth IRA conversions. When to think about this is we recommend clients think about this when the best time being the markets are down, and this gives you the ability to convert a traditional IRA funds in there into a Roth IRA. There's going to be a tax consequence to that, and so that's why we say, hey, when the markets are down, it's a good time to consider Roth IRA conversion. You're going to pay the tax on conversion, but you can capture the correction in the market when the market swings back up, and then any growth after that point, tax-free, and then where it's really beneficial is in retirement, all of that then distributes to you tax-free. So you capture all that growth, all that market correction, and then all the later retirement distributions tax-free. My next tax consideration thing to think about is for people who are partners in partnerships or shareholders in S corporations, that California has available to them a pass-through entity tax credit. What this does is this makes the taxes that you pay to California, your California state taxes, deductible to you through your flow-through entity, so that partnership or that S corp. This can generate about a 10% savings in tax when done correctly, and so consider that for people who are owners in pass-through entities, partnerships, S corps, things like that. My next item is tax loss harvesting. Another one, like the Roth conversion, things to keep in mind when we see a downturn in the market. So I think we have some people on here who are more in the investment side, but I'd say the markets overall the past few years have been up. But when we see those downturns, things to think about, the Roth conversion, also tax loss harvesting, or if there's just items in your portfolio that we just know are never going to be winners, if there's a gain that we know about on the horizon, to think about doing tax loss harvesting, or, when the market's down, or when there's just things that we've said, like, there's no way these investments are going to recover, taking those losses so that you can carry them forward to when there are gains. The other thing that I'll note that can be very powerful is that, like, outside of the things that we would normally think about, like stock investments, is cryptocurrency. If anybody's heavily invested in crypto, tax loss harvesting can be done with that as well. And what's unique to crypto is that, like, when you sell a stock and you take a loss, you can't reinvest in that for another 30 days without being subject to the loss sale rule. With cryptocurrencies, they currently, and the IRS may correct this at some point, are not subject to wash sale rules. So if crypto goes down, you can sell, you can realize the loss, you can harvest the loss, and you can turn around the next day and purchase that crypto portfolio back, and you didn't lose anything that you owned, but you were able to harvest those losses for tax purposes. The next one is going to be donor advised funds. Really big fans of donor advised funds. And on the flip side, the really good time to consider these is I'm in a stock position, it's really appreciated, it's worth a ton of money, and I'm charitably inclined. Think about a donor advised fund, because there's going to be a really big tax benefit there, and we like to call it like the double deduction, because you're not going to realize the gain on the stock that you contribute to your donor advised fund. So you never realize that gain, you never pay that capital gains tax. And on the flip side, you also get the charitable deduction for the fair market value of the stock. So it'll be really, really powerful depending on the income level. I will say that I did my largest one this year with the greatest tax benefit at 86 cents on the dollar. So if the facts are right, you can make really meaningful charitable deductions and have really big tax savings in the 86%. That's really not the norm, but to give you guys an idea, there's really potentially big tax savings that can be done through donor advised funds. And then another thing to think about, real estate professional status. This is, think about this. If you own a couple rental properties, or invested in real estate in another way, but the benefit to being qualified as a real estate professional is that you can take what would otherwise be like locked up as passive losses for tax purposes and offset ordinary income. So it can be really powerful. There are criteria to meet of like a 750-hour test. You need to be very materially participated, but it can be a really powerful election if you are a real estate investor. I realize I think I'm hitting 10 minutes here. So I'll hop to like my last slide really quickly. And I think Susie's going to cover more of this overall of consider, for estate planning, that the current lifetime gifting exemption is sitting at about $14 million for 2025. That is still set to sunset at the end of this year, but with a Trump presidency on the horizon, we anticipate that something's going to be done to keep that. None of us know what that is yet, but if you're worth more than $14 million, consider some estate planning to use up that exemption, especially if it's something kind of urgent for you. Otherwise, and Susie will speak more to this, but maybe wait and see what the new laws are going to be when we get the president in place. And I will hand it off there. I realize I went through a lot very quickly, so if there's any questions of that.
Thank you, Ashley. Excellent. Again, if there are questions, please put them in the chat and we will get to them after all of the panelists speak. Speaking of the $14 million exemption and estate planning, you could always leave it to charity. So, I'm just saying. Now, two of our panelists are going to speak as a team. So we'll hear from them now, Harout Dermendjian and Rabin Hourizadeh. Harout is an assistant vice president and wealth management advisor with Merrill Lynch in Beverly Hills, Century City. He is one of the few sports and entertainment accredited wealth management advisors at Merrill and holds a certified private wealth advisor designation from Yale University. Harout works closely with business owners, developers, athletes, and entertainers, helping them chart a more purposeful and strategic path toward their goals. He offers firsthand experience in unwinding the complexities that wealth can entail, smoothing a client's pursuit of meaningful attainments in their personal and professional finances. Harout earned his PS from California State University Northridge and his MBA in finance from Pepperdine University. He likes to spend time with his wife, exploring new destinations near and far. His hobbies include racing cars, snowboarding, playing and writing music for the guitar and bass, cooking, and perfecting his grilling techniques. Now, Rabin is a vice president and financial advisor at Merrill Lynch with more than 20 years experience in the industry, guiding clients toward financial success. Another graduate of California State University Northridge with a Bachelor of Science in Finance. Rabin is a trusted advisor specializing in wealth management, investment planning, and retirement strategies. With his years of experience, he combines industry expertise with a personalized approach to help clients achieve their wealth objectives. He's passionate about building lasting relationships and helping clients navigate the complexities of financial planning to achieve their long-term goal. I couldn't find any fun facts about Rabin online, so perhaps he can share those with us himself, or perhaps he's too busy working for his clients that he doesn't have time for a personal life. So now I'm going to open it up to Rabin and Harout.
Thank you, Aaron. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I'm hoping that everyone is safe and your loved ones are safe as well. Our goal, me and Harout today, is to talk about a few key financial topics that are important for retirees and like anyone that's planning for the future. We want to kind of have a holistic approach and go over the conditions of the stock market, the importance of long-term care planning, annuities, and touch a little bit on 401ks and IRA as Ashley was discussing earlier in the meeting. So one, we wanted to start off with the stock market. I'm sure as everyone knows, over the past few years, there's been a lot of volatility. There's been huge ups and downs that were caused by the pandemic, inflation, interest rate hikes, even global conflicts like war, and most recently, the election. And for retirees, this can, be kind of uncertainty can be especially concerning because many of us depend on our savings to cover the expenses in retirement. Now, when the market drops, so does the value of investments like stock and mutual funds, which can put a strain on the retirement income that we're planning on. And that's why we think it's important for you to ask yourself, like, how much of my money is exposed to the stock market? Should I consider shifting part of my portfolio in a safer option? And these are personal questions, but they're important to review with a financial advisor like Harout and I, especially during times where there's a lot of market volatility. And by having a balanced strategy, you can make your money last as long as you need to. And I'm going to pass it on to Harout. He's going to dive a little bit deeper into the stock market and the climate that we're in today.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being. So a few of the hot topic items that we get, these are some of the questions everyone's talking about, is interest rates. That's the hot button issue for the last few years. And, with recent election, tariffs and so on. There's been some volatility in the past few weeks in the markets. Reason being, let's take a step back. Let's look at our overall rate environment. The Fed has said that they are going to keep declining rates for the foreseeable future. Now, in the last few weeks, I believe it was 3 days ago, 4 days ago, something like that. A new jobs report came out, which may put the brakes on that, not stop it completely, but we may have less rate drops than we expected for the year. But with that said, regardless, we are in a overall macro declining rate environment. So we want to make sure that any of the portfolios that we have based on the time frame, especially for those that are living off of their investment accounts and so on, that you're positioned properly for the rate drops when they come, not if, it's a matter of when. The other big ticket conversations that we have are these tariffs and so on, all the stuff that you hear about in the news. Wall Street in general is pretty bullish for this year. If you look at any of the research reports, they're mostly bullish for the year. So outside of day-to-day volatility, week-to-week news headlines, the overall picture is of what they're expecting is a really stellar 2025. So we want to make sure we're all set up there. A few of the things that we also wanted to touch on, Ashley brought up Roth conversions and so on. I was listening this morning to a news segment on the way here to the office today, and it was scary what I heard. A quarter of all retirement plans are abandoned because people forget that they had a pension with an employer, a 401k with an employer. They don't know where the company went. They don't know if they went out of business. They moved, the company can't reach them, the addresses defunct, phone numbers defunct, whatever. So it's always important to gather your old 401ks, pensions, so on and so forth, move them over to an IRA where you can manage it yourself. And if the time permits, doing a Roth conversion, so you pay taxes once on it and you enjoy a tax-free retirement after that with no RMDs. We were going to touch on annuities and some insurance products as well. I'll let Rabin kick that off, and I'll segue back in as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Harout. So as Harout was saying, as far as retirement, IRAs, that kind of leads into the long-term care. And I'm sure, as everyone knows, as we age, a lot of us are going to need help with daily tasks, whether it's simple things like bathing, dressing, managing medications. And this type of care can happen at home. It can happen in a assisted living facility or nursing home. But there's a challenge. The challenge is that long-term care can be extremely expensive. The average cost for a nursing home right now can range anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000 a month, depending on where you live. And unfortunately, Medicare can only cover short-term stays in a nursing home under very specific conditions. That's why it's important to plan ahead and have all the options available to you to see what could be the best approach to go as far as covering your long-term expenses. Now, there's a couple of different options that we have. There's long-term care insurance. This is a specific type of insurance designed to help pay for care, and it can be expensive and often requires to apply while you're still in good health. So there are some conditions with that. There's Medicaid planning, and Medicaid will cover long-term cost cares, but that's only if your income and assets are below a certain threshold. And this often requires, careful planning years in advance. And it also comes in conditions as well. There are other financial tools that we use. There's products like annuities that can help. Some annuities are designed specifically to provide extra income if you need long-term care. Many of you may already own one, or you've at least heard of them. Just as an overview, an annuity is essentially a contract with an insurance company. So you invest a lump sum or make payments over time, and in return, the company guarantees you a steady stream of income, often, for the rest of your life. Now, annuities are a great way to create financial security, especially if you're worried about outliving your savings, which a lot of people, especially in California, that's, one of their main concerns with inflation and everything going on. It pretty much predicts, it has a predictable income that doesn't really depend on the stock market. If the stock market goes up or it goes down, which can be a relief during retirement. So you know that you will be receiving a specific income monthly, and it's not tied to anything that has to do with the market at all. But one important thing that I would like to touch on as far as annuities is if you've purchased one before COVID-19, it might be time to take a closer look at it and have a financial advisor like Harout and I kind of look over it. The reason why is because before COVID, back in 2020, interest rates were at like historic lows. That means the growth or the income potential of the annuities issued at the time may be lower compared to what's available today. Even though interest rates have gone down a little bit since last year, they're still significantly higher than they were before COVID. And this can be made in newer annuities, more attractive. They can offer better payout rates or growth opportunities. And if you're not happy with your current annuity, or you're curious about whether you could do better or there's a solution, there is one thing called 1035 exchange. This is a provision in the tax code that allows you to transfer the value of your existing annuity into a new one without having to pay taxes on any of the gains right away. So the 1035 exchange is kind of like the real estate 1035 exchange, whereas it gives you the option to get higher interest rates depending on where the climate is, and which right now it is higher interest rates. So the new annuities may offer better returns. They may have new features. Some new products include benefits like long-term care riders or inflation protection. And you can also consolidate the contracts. If you have any, multiple annuities, you can combine them into one and make it easier to manage. However, it's important that you at a time like this to take the opportunity to talk to a financial advisor to have them review it. Obviously, it's at no cost. And if there's any potential for higher interest rates, more returns, or better contracts, we would be more than happy to lay out the options for you guys to see if there's anything else that can be more beneficial. Harout?
Thanks. Rabin, you, I think, stole the show here.
Oh.
Covered all the topics.
Well, the goal here is to give you guys... Go ahead.
No, sorry. Just one thing I wanted to reiterate to everybody here. If you have an existing annuity, if you have an existing life insurance policy, if you got that policy before, I want to say 2022, before rates went sky high, you are probably locked in to a low rate. You're stuck with a low rate. If you have a fixed annuity, index, it does not matter. If you had it before 2022, you need to have it looked at, whether it is insurance, whether is it an annuity. What you can do, what Rabin was talking about, is switch it to a higher paying annuity or life insurance product. So more money in your pocket. Usually could be no cost to do this. So it's kind of a no-brainer. And that's a tax-free or a tax-deferred rollover. So again, if you have one before 2022, you need to have it looked at. Providing a most recent statement to Aaron, myself, Rabin, any of us, we can give you some options and tell you either stay the course, or if there's an opportunity to increase the rate of return on what you're getting, then at that point it's a no-brainer, especially on fixed annuities. This is me, diving into the weeds here, especially if you got a fixed annuity at like 1 or 2% in 2020. Nowadays they're like 5 to 7. So it's 5, 6, 7 times the return with no risk. So that's one thing to note.
The goal is to give you guys a peace of mind and kind of ensure that your finances are in the best possible shape for your future. So whether it's, if you have 401ks, IRAs, if you need long-term insurance, if you have annuities, it's very important to have those reviewed annually, especially in a time right now where everything is changing and the stock market is very volatile, and the foreseeable future, there's a lot of uncertainty there. So We can definitely review everything for you guys, give you guys some pointers, obviously at no cost. And if there's anything that we can do, we'd be more than happy to help.
Great, thank you very much, Harout and Rabin. Excellent. I thought I would mention also, as I tried to unspotlight, there's also something called a charitable gift annuity for those who wish to support their favorite organization while getting fixed income for life. A charitable gift annuity is where you donate a sum of money to the charity. The charity has to be licensed to do this, which LHAH is. And the older you are, the better your payout rate is. So it's fixed when you establish the charitable gift annuity. So a 70-year-old right now is getting 6.3% on a charitable gift annuity. An 80-year-old would be getting 8.1%. 90 or older, you'd be getting 10.1%. Plus you get a partial tax deduction, and much of your income is tax-free for life, or for your life expectancy. So it's a pretty great win-win for the charity and the donor. Right now, we're going to introduce our final panelist, Susie Grigoryan. Susie last year joined the law office of Richard, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Hoytol in Cypress, California. Perhaps Susie can correct me when she speaks. Their practice emphasizes in-depth estate planning, trust administration, probate, and business and estate-related matters. Notably, they also do a significant amount of advanced planning and many types of tax planning. Susie graduated also from California State University Northridge with a BS in finance. That makes all four panelists alum of CSUN. So at the end, I think I will leave the webinar and let them have their own little reunion. She received her JD from Chapman University Fowler School of Law, where she was the president and founder of the Human Rights Law Society, as well as the editor-in-chief of the Chapman Law Courier. In her spare time, Susie loves spending quality time with her husband and young son, being outdoors with their dog, practicing yoga, and cooking new recipes. She's also fluent in Armenian, but I am not, so we're not going to entertain any questions in Armenian. Sorry about that. Again, if you have questions for any of our panelists, please put them in the chat, and after Susie speaks, we will read some of the questions to the panelists. Someone asks right now if we can receive a copy of this recorded meeting emailed to us. Yes, if you contact me after the webinar by email, I will be happy to send a link to you. And I also ask all the panelists to put their contact information in the chat at some point before the end. So if any of you want to reach them after the webinar, you can do so. So take it away, Susie.
Thank you, Aaron. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for taking the time today to join our webinar. Before getting into my presentation, I also wanted to address what's happening in LA. I hope you and your families are safe and doing well. I'm an LA native. I currently live in OC, but all of my family is still in LA, so I'm constantly getting updates about what's going on. So I'm an estate planning attorney, so I personally don't have expertise when it comes to the legal claims related to the fires in LA, but I do have plenty of connections that are experienced in this area. So if you'd like, you're welcome to reach out to me. I can hopefully get you in touch with someone who can help when it comes to the LA fires. So that being said, I have a few slides as well to share to kind of help me explain what I was going to explain in estate planning. So let me go ahead and share that. Okay, it's showing up okay? Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay, so I guess to clear up what Aaron was saying, it's pronounced Law Office of Richard Huddle. Nobody gets it right. I got it wrong the first time too. No worries. So it's kind of what I'm doing today is an estate planning 101. Just so that you know, so when people come into our office and I have the very first meeting, the first meeting on average takes about 2 hours. I always tell people to block out 2 hours, and that's just to scratch the surface of things to consider. And bear in mind today, I'm trying to keep it down to like 10 minutes. Speaking of that, I should probably set my timer so I'm pacing myself. So let's get going. So I'm going to try to cover estate planning basics and 2025 updates, thinking about people needing special consideration, some other important estate planning documents, and how it is to work with our firm, because every firm works differently. I thought I'd kind of lay out how everything plays out with us. So first, estate planning basics and 2025 updates. So what even is an estate plan? So when someone says estate plan, they're talking about that comprehensive plan that addresses how you and your stuff are to be managed. It's simply put, it's a contract. It's a contract with a set of guidelines on how all of your assets are to be managed. So what if I don't have an estate plan? In that case, the state will decide what happens to you and your stuff. And why did I put the California Department of Unclaimed Property up here? Because that's basically what happens when people don't pass down their belongings to their loved ones via a trust or will or anything, or don't even do probate. The California Department of Unclaimed Property right now has more than 11.9 billion. I was actually researching recently to see how much is in there now, but the most recent number I got was from 2023. So I am positive this number has grown even more right now. So I mentioned probate. So what is probate? Probate is what happens when someone passes away with either a will or no documents in place. If someone passes away with a trust, that's the only way that you can bypass probate and pass down assets to your loved ones with just the help of an attorney in a private setting. So probate is the court process of determining whether a person, the decedent, died with a valid will or no documents at all, who will wind up the affairs of the decedent. Because when a probate case is opened with the court, someone has to be the petitioner or the administrator. Someone has to be the one essentially moving things forward in order for assets to be passed down to the rightful people. And then who will receive the decedent's money and property. So that is something that the attorney has to do with the help of the petitioner, whoever's opening up the probate case. And then the court ends up playing a part in this and deciding who's actually going to get the assets. So the downsides of probate are that it's time consuming. You don't really have much control over it. It's really up to the court and how fast they can get through your case. It is expensive. You know, people have to work in order to have the assets be valued and, you know, do all the necessary work to decide where it's supposed to go. And then, like I said, it's a matter of public record. It's not private. So technically, anyone that knows the person that passed away and they know which county that person is in, they could actually look it up on the court website, check out when the next hearing is, and they can go sit in on the hearing and hear everything that there is to be said about that person's estate. And that's something I would imagine everyone would want to avoid. Sometimes there are, you know, predators that go for people that are really young. They can hang out and try to, you know, get to the people that are supposed to be receiving an inheritance and try to scam them or something like that. So there's all sorts of things that could happen. So a lot of times people will come to me and say, well, okay, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do estate planning. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Can't I just add someone as a joint owner? Yeah, technically you can do it. It's legal. You can add someone as a joint owner, but you're putting your money and property at risk. And let me kind of elaborate on that a little bit. So imagine you add someone as a joint owner to your house. Let's say the two of you go on a trip somewhere and both of you pass away with no estate planning done, right? Then in that case, there is no living owner to that house. Now that house has to go through probate. Or another thing that people don't consider is, okay, let's say you do add a joint owner. That actually has tax implications in the county. Because what happens is, let's say, so you are 100% owner of a real property and you add somebody as a joint tenant, right? Now you're changing the percentage ownership. The original owner now becomes a 50% owner. The other person's also 50%. As soon as the county sees that those percentages have changed, that's an immediate red flag for them and they do a tax reassessment right there. So these are some things, just I'm giving you little points of things to consider just to keep in the back of your mind in case some, scenarios are to pop up. So can I just complete a transfer on death or payable on death designation? Same concept as what I said in the last slide. You can do these things, but it's still, you're still leaving things vulnerable to the beneficiary's creditors. So how do I avoid probate? You have to die with no accounts or property held in your name alone. It should be in a trust. And if it's in a trust, then a beneficiary needs to be designated. Okay, so I always draw like a treasure chest to kind of depict what a trust would look like. You are essentially putting assets into the treasure chest, and then from the treasure chest, it has to pass down to the beneficiaries. And that's how the trust accomplishes your goals. And I put a big red strike through the courthouse because that's how we are avoiding probate. Okay, so 25 updates in the law. The first two are not too surprising. So the annual gift tax exclusion increased to $19,000 per recipient. So what does that mean? That means that you can gift up to $19,000 per year per person. You can do to as many people as you want, but each person can only receive up to $19,000. This is a really nice tool to use if, let's say, you want to gift throughout your lifetime in order to bring down your taxable estate. This is just one tool among many other tools. The federal estate tax exemption increased to 13.99 million. Last year it was 13.61 million. This is per person. So if it's a married couple, it would be, let's just round that up to 14. So that's 28 million in total estate. If that's how much your estate is worth, you are within the amount. That means it won't be taxed. But if you're beyond that, then you really need to consider some special type of planning in order to bring down your taxable estate. So the Assembly Bill 2016 was an interesting one. It's regarding small estates. It will take effect on April 1st, 2025 and remain in effect until March of 2028. So this applies to people who died with real property valued at $750,000 or less at the time of death. So just to paint the picture of how that's different from what we have right now. So now if people die with $184,500 or less in assets, you can have those assets passed down via something called a small estate affidavit. And that's basically, that's not probate, that's not trust administration. It's just like a very simple set of documents that you present to the institution where the assets are held, and that passes down the assets to the beneficiary. Now, what they've done with Assembly Bill 2016 is they've expanded this to basically say if someone dies with real property that is valued at $750,000 or less at the time of death, then that can also be passed down to the rightful beneficiary with a small estate affidavit, or rather not a full probate process. So what the courts are trying to do, because right now they are pretty overburdened with probate, and that's why it's taking so long for probate to be done. They're trying to lessen how much they have on their docket. They're trying to lessen the amount of work that comes their way and trying to get people to pass things down without them being heavily involved. So I'd say this is a really nice move in the right direction. I I hope they increase this amount a little bit more. At least in Southern California, it's not too common that you see that house value. A lot of them are valued even just a little bit beyond that. So hopefully they increase it a little bit to make things easier for people. So
Susie,
how is trust
so this only applies in California?
Yeah, this is in California.
And then the 184,500 would still apply to their personal property in addition to the 750 of real property.
Yes. The
Great.
750 is like, it's just like a tack on to it, basically. So how's a trust structured? So I wanted to kind of draw this out for you guys because every time someone comes to our office, I'm in front of a whiteboard, or if I'm on Zoom, I literally open up a whiteboard and I'm drawing on it. It really helps to diagram things out. So let's say we've got a married couple and then the first person passes away. Okay, what you could do is you could say 100% of the assets go to the survivor. Okay, So there's this common misconception. People come in thinking, oh, this is really how it works with everybody. Actually, it's not. There are so many different ways that you could structure it. You could say, after the first person passes away, I'm going to only give 50% to the survivor. And then you could say the other 50%, I'm going to put it in an irrevocable trust. So what is the benefit of even putting it in an irrevocable trust? The benefit is that in an irrevocable trust, that portion is protected from creditors, predators, lawsuits, divorces, anything that the survivor might go through one day. And it doesn't have to be 50-50. So when I say it doesn't have to be 50-50, so think of it this way. I like to point out 3 key ways that married couples can structure it. For one, you can say all to the survivor, okay? The second way, you can say, I want the option to maybe only take some of it as the survivor, and then maybe, depending on the tax laws in the future, I might elect to put some percentage of it in an irrevocable trust because I don't necessarily need it. I want that to just pass down to my kids or whoever is going to receive it. Okay? And then the third way is a mandatory 50-50 split. That's really nice for blended families or for people that have very, very high net worth. And that way you can really just specify how you want this 50% to be handled and that 50% to be handled. Okay, so just a little note there. For surviving spouse's benefit and protected from creditors, lawsuits, predators, etc. So what about when it's a married couple and both of them have passed away? So how does that look? So let's say that married couple has 3 children. Sorry, I know I'm going over the time. Let me know if I'm overdoing it. I can kind of cut through some of it. I find this stuff to be super helpful.
It's okay.
Okay, so imagine the married couple has 3 children, okay? And then hypothetical ages, age 18, 22, and 30. Let's say the married couple decided, I'm just going to evenly distribute to all 3 of the kids outright. And let's say, hypothetically, each one of them is going to receive $400,000. So imagine that's a windfall of $400,000. So what's the 18-year-old going to do with $400,000? What's the 22-year-old or the 30-year-old going to do with $400,000? So in my hypothetical, let's say age 18, $400,000, this person loves to spend. You can say goodbye to that $400,000 in a relatively short period of time. I didn't want to make all 3 of the kids be irresponsible, so I made the 22-year-old be a responsible person. Let's say they're a responsible student graduating from college. They put the $400,000 in investments, or they're saving it up to, I don't know, buy a house, let's say. So they're doing it for good reasons. They're being smart with it. That's fine. How about the 3rd child that gets $400,000? Let's say in their future there's a divorce. Well, that $400,000 is going to be subject to the divorce. Okay? So let's see another way to do it. Let's say you are distributing it in trusts with potential protection. So what does that mean? So if you're going to be giving your assets to your children with potential protection, what that means is you're holding them in a trust for their benefit. It is not technically becoming theirs. And what they do not own and what they do not have control over is not theirs and is not subject to risk. Okay? So the first child that loves to spend will basically have we won't be able to just take that money and go splurge it. And then the 3rd child that had a future involving a divorce, that $400,000 won't be subject to the divorce, which is really nice. Okay, so let's also talk about step up in basis. For step up in basis, I could give you a definition, but it doesn't really sink in unless someone gives you a hypothetical, so that's what I'm doing over here. And for purposes of the hypothetical, I'm just ignoring the capital gains exclusion just to make it easier to explain, okay? So let's say someone's purchased in the 1980s a house for $300,000. Let's say the market value has gone up to $1.3 million. So, and then let's say you want to sell that $1.3 million house. So the difference in the value is $1 million. So that's subject to capital gains tax. So you're going to be taxed on that amount. And remember, I said I'm ignoring the capital gains exclusion. Each person does have a certain amount of money that they can exclude from that $1 million to bring down the amount that's going to be taxed. But still, it doesn't end up covering the entire increase in value. And this is something we're seeing very commonly right now. There are a lot of people that bought houses for that low of an amount, and it has actually grown to 1.5 million about. So they really would be facing a pretty big capital gains tax. So now let's see what happens if you do it with a trust. Okay, so you purchase the house for $300,000, you place it in a trust with named beneficiaries. The market value at the time of death is $1.3 million. Now, your new stepped up basis is $1.3 million. What does that mean? That means when you're doing that subtraction, where you're doing the amount that you're selling it for minus the amount that it was basically bought for, now the bought for value is essentially 1.3 million. So let's say the market value when the beneficiaries are selling it is 1.5 million. Because the parents died with the house valuing $1.3 million and it was in a trust, now you do 1.5 minus 1.3. You don't do 1.5 minus $300,000. That's huge. You don't want to miss out on something like that. So the amount subject to capital gains tax is $200,000 there only. Okay, so people needing some special consideration. So this is just little tidbits, things to think about in estate planning. So if someone comes in with minor children, I'm always asking, okay, have you thought about a guardian for that minor child? You can have a permanent guardian chosen, you can have a temporary guardian chosen. And then in California, that's basically what the document is called. It's a declaration of appointment of guardian. Okay, and we can go into all sorts of detail with that, or you can keep it super simple and just say, this is who I want as the guardian. You can leave a letter saying, this is how I want my child to be handled. These are the schools I want my kid to go to. This is how I want the money to be handled. You can say, I want this person to handle my child, but I want this person to handle their money. So you can customize it in all sorts of ways. A trust is the best way to go. You get to choose who manages the property and money, how the money is distributed to the child. Without a trust or a will, the judge decides who will manage the money and property, which is not good. Because what if you have someone in the family, or maybe not even in the family, what if it's a really close family friend who would be the perfect person to manage that child's money? There's no way the court's going to go and pick a random person like that. They're probably going to end up picking somebody within the family that may not be the best suited. And then without a trust, the money is distributed outright to the child upon reaching the age of majority. I actually knew someone. I met her when she was in her 30s, and she told me when her mom passed away, she received like several $100,000 outright. And all of her friends at the time, so she was in her early 20s, all of her friends at the time were excited to spend money, travel, spend money on lavish items. And she said, she was like, oh, I didn't really understand the concept of how to save money or invest it. So I went and I spent it all. And she was kicking herself saying, I could have had a house by now. I could have used that toward a down payment, for example. So some things to consider here. So those who need help managing money, so these are also people to consider. So it could be someone who's bad with managing money. They might have creditors trying to collect from them. Let's say they're in a job that has a high risk of lawsuits, or there's a possibility that they could get divorced. So a trust protects the beneficiaries' inheritances instead of gifting it to them outright. And beneficiaries can get maximum enjoyment, and your legacy lives on like that. So people that need special considerations, also blended families, and I actually have a hypothetical coming up about this. In blended families, a lot of times, so husband and wife come in, they've been in previous marriages before, they have kids of their own biological children. Sometimes they have a joint child together, so there's 3 sets of kids to think about. So there's all sorts of ways that you could set this up. And then you could make it so that all of the children are provided for in such a way that none of them are going to feel bad about it in the future when both the mom and dad pass away. And then we also take into consideration whether there are any prenuptial agreements, divorce settlements, things of that sort. Okay, so let's talk about blended families that don't get any estate planning done. This is a crazy hypothetical. It's very eye-opening. Let's say Sam and Sue get married and have 2 kids, Emily and Daniel. Let's say Sam passes away, and at this point, they haven't done any estate planning. Let's say Sue goes and gets married with Adam. They still don't have any estate planning done. Okay, they have Sarah and Ben. So now you have 4 children in the picture. Let's say Sue passes away and they still haven't done estate planning. Okay, Emily and Daniel are now out of the picture because under California community property laws, so whatever Sue took with her into her marriage with Adam now is going to the survivor. So Adam gets it. And then when Adam passes away, it's going to go down to Sarah and Ben because Emily and Daniel are not his biological children. Okay, so really, really important for that to be considered. It's kind of a taboo topic to talk about when you say, well, what if one of you passes away and then the survivor goes and gets remarried? It's a tough talk to have, but you know, it's reality. It does happen, and it's something that should definitely be considered. Okay, so what about special needs people? So that could be anyone. It could be a grandparent, parent, child, grandchild. So anyone that's receiving government benefits. We know that the government looks for every opportunity to cut the benefits that they're giving you. So why not structure a trust in a way that keeps any inheritances separate from you so that you can continue getting government benefits and also benefit from whatever you're going to be getting through an inheritance through a trust. You could have both, but only if you plan for it and only if you structure your trust the right way. Okay, and then business owners. So your business is really no different than your home or bank account when it comes to estate planning. However, you can't just name a beneficiary and move on. There's a lot of complex planning when it comes to businesses. So who's going to run the business if you're not able to? At retirement, do you want to keep the business in the family or sell it? Who would you even sell it to? How much do you need to sell the business for in order to walk away financially secure? And when do you want to get out of the business? There's all sorts of things to think about when it comes to businesses. Pets. People also forget to think about their pets. So that's my miniature schnauzer. I already have a plan in place for who's going to take over her if something does happen to us. They are part of the family, you know? And so who's going to take physical custody of your pets? Do you want to leave them any money? Do they have money to take care of your pets? Do they know what your pet needs to thrive in the household? You can take all these things into consideration. Okay, so some other important estate planning documents are your financial power of attorney. So this is if you can't make your own financial decision. Let's say you're incapacitated, you're not mentally there, you're physically not able to do things. Who's going to be the one to go pay your bills? Who's going to pay your mortgage? So this person can sign a check, open a bank account. You can decide to give them as much power as you want or as little power as you want. It's really what you choose. And there's different types of financial powers of attorney. You can sign a power of attorney and say, from this day forward, it's going to be valid. Or you can say, I'm signing this, but it's only going to spring into existence if I am deemed incapacitated. Okay? And then there's also general, which is basically you're giving them all the powers, or there's limited, which means you're only giving them a specific set of powers to use. So the advanced healthcare.
Susie, we're just about at 11:30. So we've only had one question really in the chat that I tried to address, and that was about I thought it was about capital gains taxes, but it turns out it's about property tax on the step up in gain. And I know there's been recent legislation in the last couple of years where the beneficiaries can't avoid the increase in property tax when they inherit something from their parents, let's say. Can you address that really quickly?
Yeah, let me touch upon that. So I believe that's Prop 19 that they're asking about. So what happens is, so let's say you are to inherit a property from your parents, and you don't want to live in that property as your primary residence. If you don't want to live in it as your primary residence, that's where the property tax goes up. Okay? You get to keep the property tax low up to a certain amount if you choose to live in that property as your primary residence. So that's basically the key right there. Primary residence or not. Okay? Does that kind of help?
Yes, got it.
Question? So that's why you see a lot of people that inherit real property. They're super, super quick to sell that property because they don't want to deal with the property taxes that are about to shoot up. They're like, you know what, let me just give it to somebody else and get the, increase in value, just get the money that it's worth.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
of course.
Well,
So,
it's 11:30. If people want to stay on, I'm happy to continue. How many more slides do you have, Susie?
I really only have like 3 more actually.
Okay. If
Yeah.
people, for those who can't stay, I just want to thank you for joining us. If I know that I haven't seen our panelists put their contact information in the chat yet, but if anybody does want to reach them, you can reach them through me as well. But go ahead. And I see we have another question here. Do you?
Sorry, you got cut out.
Oh, somebody asks in the chat, do you have to be in that primary, do you have to be in that house as primary residence for a full year for the tax break?
I don't remember that off the top of my head. I
I
know
think it
that
is.
there is a rule. I feel like it is a 1 year.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And I'm
Good
not
question.
entirely positive how those audits work. I don't know how they catch people. But
Honor system.
but that is, yeah, but that is how it works. Yeah, you have to be living in there. I hope that helps. If you want, whoever asked the question, feel free to reach out to me. I can look into it and get the answer to that. A lot of times I know where to find the answer to questions people give me, but I don't remember it off the top of my head because I haven't memorized things that change super frequently too. Okay. Is it okay if I jump back into
Yeah,
this?
go ahead.
Okay, so the Advanced Healthcare Directive is basically your medical power of attorney. Think of it that way. California gave it a special name. In all the other states, not all of them, but a lot of the other states just call it a medical power of attorney. That's because that's really what it is. It allows you to appoint someone to make medical decisions for you if you are incapacitated or unable to communicate your wishes. You have to choose this person wisely. Can they be at your side in an emergency? And then it allows you to provide directions about your end of life care. Like you can address things like, if I'm in a coma, how would I want things to be handled? If it's clear that I'm headed toward death, how do you want things to be handled? And remember, it's a gift to not leave your loved ones guessing about how you would have wanted things to be handled in the future if you're in that sort of a situation. So HIPAA authorization, I think it's a super, super important document to have in addition to the Advanced Healthcare Directive. If you have the Advanced Healthcare Directive without a HIPAA authorization, you're really lacking in your ability to act as a medical agent, because a HIPAA authorization basically allows someone to choose a trusted set of people to go to the healthcare provider and request medical records. If you request those medical records, you have them in your hands and you're the medical agent for someone, you can now make very good medical decisions for that person, as opposed to kind of going off of just looking at them and seeing what sort of state they're in. Because a lot of times doctors won't be willing to even share medical information with you because that's just how strict the HIPAA laws are. Okay, so I know I went through a lot. I wanted to say how it looks like to work with our firm. So what we do is we do a free initial meeting focused on client education. That first meeting, like I said, runs 2 hours, which is why I had so much trouble keeping my presentation short today, because I felt like I would be missing a lot of key things if I didn't say them. So that's the initial meeting. We sit down together. I diagram out all sorts of things on the whiteboard. We talk some general hypotheticals just so that I know what direction you're headed in. And then once we have that figured out, the next meeting would be what I call the design meeting. And that's where I go way more into detail. So I like zoom in on every single stage of life that you're going to be in the future. And we talk about all those stages. Once I have that design meeting done, that's again like 2 to 3 hours potentially. Then I'm sitting down at my computer drafting all the documents. When I have the rough drafts ready, the third meeting, we sit down and review all of the documents together. It's quite a few documents. So again, that's like another 2-hour meeting right there. We go through all the documents. If you notice anything in that moment that needs to be changed, I make note of it. And then when all the documents are ready, we pick the signing date. And then that's the fourth meeting. You come into our office and we basically go through the whole binder. We have everything notarized and then we scan them all in and you come in and you pick up the binder at the very end on a separate date. I was going to say something. Oh, right. The first 3 meetings, 1, 2, and 3, can be held on Zoom. It's pretty easy for me to do those 3 meetings over Zoom, but the 4th meeting has to be in person because at the last minute, sometimes some docs need to be reprinted or some adjustments need to be made or something like that. So 4th meeting always has to be in person. I'm just making this known because we are in Orange County. So really the 2 options are to have the meetings in person in our office, which I highly encourage because there's a really nice energy exchange when you meet with people in person. But if you can't or your schedule doesn't allow it, I completely get it. I'm happy to do things over Zoom. Just wanted to let that be known. And thank you for your time. That's my contact information if you need. And then Aaron has my contact information too if you want to get it from him.
Thank you, Ash. Thank you, Susie. Wonderful. Harout and Rabin, it turns out their system does not allow them to type in the chat. I guess it's blocked for some reason. So I'm going to email all of the registrants, all of the panelists' contact information. That way everyone will have that. Ashley's already put hers in the chat and then she had to run. But I will send an email with all of the contact information. If there's any other questions in the chat, I know we're over. And I had some prepared questions, but I think I'll forego unless anybody has any questions now. Otherwise, I just want to say thank you again for joining us. We hope you're able to take some information with you today that will help you face these challenging times. Stay in touch with us and let us know if you do have questions, and we're here to help you answer them. And thank you again for your support of Los Angeles Jewish Health. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.